do not take the mark of the beast, cannot buy or sell. Now, futurists often, dispensationalists usually, believe that this mark of the beast is literally something put on your body, which is used for business transactions, for purchases and such. And it replaces cash. When I was a teenager, the prophecy teacher said it's a laser tattoo. It'll be a credit number laser tattooed onto your hand or forehead. So when you go to a store, instead of using money or even a credit card, you just scan your hand under the black light, and it'll debit your account. So it's just like using a credit card, but it's built in. Well, in those days, laser tattoos were high tech. Nowadays, nobody talks about laser tattoos or black lights. That was hippie stuff, black lights. But nowadays, we got sexier technology. We've got computer chips that can be put under the skin or on the forehead. And so every few days, I receive someone forwarding me something in the email about how this is being planned already. There's this RFD they call it? Chips that are radio frequency, something and happen. Anyway, these chips, they say it's got to go under your hand or your forehead because that's the best place for something, recharging the battery or something like that. And that, they're going to use that. How they're going to use a chip, it's not entirely clear. I guess scanning. And they always give examples of how, there's this company in Florida that is already giving such chips to animals, pets, and so forth, because it helps you to locate them. And they're going to put all our medical records on a chip and put it on us, and this is the mark of the beast. Well, so far, I don't see any comparisons between that and the mark of the beast, except the claim that it'll be on the hand or the forehead. And the mark of the beast is not about your medical records. The mark of the beast is not about locating you when you get lost. The mark of the beast is not even necessarily about purchasing things with a credit number. It is true that those who don't have the mark of the beast cannot buy or sell, but it does not mean because they need that mark for the transactions to go through the bank. It can easily mean that they cannot buy or sell. That's a specimen of persecution, that they are, if they don't conform to the world and to the beast, people will persecute them, ostracize them, boycott them, and this has happened many times in the world. Many times in especially oppressive states, which were anti-Christian, there were actually laws made against doing business with Christians, selling or buying from them. Actually, the popes put out some papal bulls in the Middle Ages against the Waldensians. The Waldensians were evangelical Christians who didn't go along with the popes. And there are actual papal bulls that forbade people to buy or sell anything with them. It's a form of persecution. It's a form of boycott. Now, some might say, but why would that particular thing be mentioned if it's not about, cashlessness? Well, several times people who die for the Lord are referred to in Revelation. They're always referred to as having been beheaded. And yet not all people who die for the Lord are beheaded. A lot of people were beheaded by the Romans, the Christians who were killed by the Romans. Some of them were beheaded, some were fed to lions, some were, killed other ways. But they're always the ones beheaded for the gospel. This is simply shorthand for saying martyr. It's like taking one example of how people are martyred and having it stand for all kinds of martyrdom. Anyone who's beheaded for Christ has certain things said about them. Well, what about the person who was stabbed or burned or fed to lions? What, he doesn't get the same privilege as someone beheaded? Obviously, that's nonsense. The ones who are beheaded simply stand for people who are martyred. The ones who are persecuted by boycott simply stand for the larger category of general ostracism and boycott and persecution of them as a class because they don't conform to what the rest of the world is agreeing to, namely the mark of the beast. But what is the mark of the beast then? Well, it's on the hand and the forehead. What does that tell us? Well, if you look at Deuteronomy chapter 6, Deuteronomy 6, it says in verse 6 and following through verse 9, and these words which I command you today shall be in your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. You shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Now, when it says the law shall be bound to your hands as a sign on your hand, and between your eyes, on your forehead, in other words. Jewish people, some Jewish people have taken this quite literally. They've made what they call phylacteries, a little leather box or pouch, and they put little scroll pieces, little scriptures written on paper or parchment, and they put them in these little pouches, and they bind them with strings around their head. They have maybe you've seen this in pictures of Israeli Jews. Some of them have the phylacteries like a cylindrical little thing coming out from the front of their head and a strap around it. They're binding the law to their forehead between their eyes. They have straps of the law there. They do it on their hands too. That's what phylacteries are. But I don't believe that this is what God had in mind. That's rather a wooden literalism. Bind the law to your hands as a sign and between your eyes. I think it's more reasonable to assume that what he's saying is, I want your hands and your full attention to be on my law. I want your hands govern your works. Your hands are your works. Your between your eyes where you'll see it's on your thoughts. That your thoughts and your actions, your thoughts and your works will be governed by my laws. And that'll be a sign to people when they see you acting and thinking like me, like God. When you see that my words and my revelation of my law are governing the way you think and the way you act, that will be a sign to people. And I believe that when the beast's mark is on the hand or the forehead, it has a similar meaning. These people think and act like the beast. Christians don't. They think like their father. They have their father's name on their forehead. And just as a brand of a master on a slave's forehead would immediately give away whose slave he was, so the behavior and thoughts of Christians should give away immediately whose servant they are. And likewise, those who serve the beast, their thoughts and their actions differ significantly from those of the believers, and that gives them away too. In other words, when people see how you act and how you think, they should know instantly whose servant you are. If you look at Romans chapter 6, in verse